History remembers him as a traitor, a reckless prince accused of betraying his faith, endangering his country, and nearly destroying one of Africa's oldest civilizations. But here is the part most people never hear. The accusation that destroyed him was never proven. No evidence, no confession, no certainty. And yet, it was enough to strip him of power, turn the church against him, and erase him from history. His name was Lij Iyasu, the chosen successor to one of Africa's greatest emperors. He was never crowned, never buried with honor, and for decades, even his photographs were banned. So the question isn't just what happened to Iyasu. The real question is, was he truly a dangerous ruler, or was he removed because he challenged the very idea of what Ethiopia was supposed to be? Because at the center of this story is something far bigger than one man. It's about power, it's about identity, and it's about a country forced to choose between tradition and transformation. To understand Iyasu, you have to understand the Ethiopia he was born into. In 1896, under Emperor Menelik II, Ethiopia achieved something almost unheard of in Africa at the time. It defeated a European power at the Battle of Adwa. This victory didn't just secure independence, it made Ethiopia a symbol of resistance. But victory came with a new kind of pressure. Because while Ethiopia remained unconquered, it was now surrounded on all sides by European colonial powers. And behind closed doors, those same powers were already planning for its collapse. In 1906, Britain, France, and Italy secretly agreed to divide Ethiopia among themselves if instability broke out. No war, no invasion, just lines drawn on a map. And at the center of it all, an aging emperor. As Menelik II's health declined, the question of succession became urgent. His chosen heir was his teenage grandson, Lij Iyasu, and at just 14 years old, Iyasu was thrust into a world of politics, power, struggles, and hidden agendas. To secure his future role, nobles and religious leaders swore loyalty to him under the authority of the Ethiopian Orthodox Church. Breaking that oath wasn't just political betrayal, it was spiritual exile. But there was one problem. Iyasu didn't grow into the ruler they expected. From the moment he took power, Iyasu did something unusual for a royal. He left the palace. He traveled across Ethiopia not as a distant emperor, but as an observer. And what he saw changed everything. He saw regions ignored by the central government. He saw communities treated as outsiders in their own country. He saw poverty, heavy taxation, and deep inequality. And instead of reinforcing the existing system, he tried to change it. Iyasu began reaching out to groups that had long been marginalized: Muslims, Oromos, Somalis. He formed alliances, not through force, but through marriage. In Ethiopian tradition, marriage wasn't just personal, it was political. By marrying into different regions, Iyasu was attempting something radical: to create a more inclusive Ethiopia where identity wasn't limited to one group or one religion. But to the ruling elites, this wasn't unity, it was a threat. For centuries, power in Ethiopia had been closely tied to the Orthodox Christian establishment and the Shoan nobility. Iyasu's action disrupted that balance. He removed key officials, redistributed power, and elevated groups that had never been part of the political center. To some, this looked like reform. To others, it looked like betrayal. And then came the turning point. Rumors began to spread, claims that Iyasu had converted to Islam, that he was abandoning the faith that legitimized his rule. But here is what makes this critical. There was no verified proof. Yet the accusation spread rapidly, amplified by both internal rivals and external forces. In 1914, the world was thrown into chaos with the start of World War I. And suddenly, Ethiopia wasn't just dealing with internal tension, it was caught in a global power struggle. Iyasu's foreign policy raised alarms. He maintained contact with powers like Germany and the Ottoman Empire, enemies of Britain, France, and Italy. At the same time, he supported resistance movements in neighboring colonial territories. To European powers, this was dangerous. To Ethiopia's elites, It was reckless. And so, two different groups with very different motives found common ground. Iyasu had to go. In 1916, the plan was set in motion. Nobles met in secret, church leaders were persuaded, and the accusation of religious betrayal became the justification they needed. Iyasu was excommunicated, declared unfit to rule, and removed from power. In his place, Empress Ziditu was installed. But real power went to her regent, Ras Tafari, a name that would later define Ethiopia for decades. Iyasu, the rightful heir, was now a fugitive. Iyasu's father, Ras Mikael, refused to accept the coup. He raised an army and marched to restore his son. The two sides met at the Battle of Sigel. It was one of the deadliest internal conflicts in Ethiopian history, and when it was over, Iyasu's side had lost. His father was captured, paraded in chains, and Iyasu himself went into hiding. For years he evaded capture, but eventually he was found, imprisoned, and removed completely from power. What happened next is just as important as the coup itself. Iyasu wasn't just defeated, he was erased. His images were banned, his story rewritten, official accounts labeled him a traitor, an apostate, a failed ruler. But decades later, new information began to emerge. Claims that he had never actually abandoned his faith, that the central accusation used to justify his removal may not have been true at all. Even the Ethiopian Orthodox Church later acknowledged that there was no confirmed evidence of his conversion. Yet, his excommunication was never erased. So, what was Iyasu really? A reckless leader who moved too fast and alienated too many people, or a visionary who tried to redefine Ethiopia before the country was ready? Because when you strip away the propaganda, what remains is a leader who challenges who gets to belong, who gets to rule, and what it means to be Ethiopian. And those are questions that didn't disappear with him. They shaped the decades that followed. They fueled tensions, conflicts, even revolutions. Iyasu died in captivity. No grand burial, no official recognition. And to this day, no one knows exactly where he lies. But his story lives behind something far more powerful than a grave. A question. What if Ethiopia didn't remove a traitor, but silenced the future it didn't yet understand? But silenced the future it didn't yet understand.